Hello, work wifeys. Welcome to another episode of the Dear Work Wives podcast. I'm Adrienne and
I'm Emily.
this is Emily. We're here to
Hello,
help
work wife.
create work cultures that don't suck. Once
Yes.
again, week after week, we are on a mission.
A mission. I was gonna say a rampage.
We're Avengers.
Yeah. Yes.
Speaking of,
we were just talking about Guardians before this. We're the
we
Guardians
don't want to give you
of
any
the
spoilers.
workplace.
No spoilers. Even
We had
though
to
I
talk
was
about it
telling
before.
Emily that my husband went and saw it and gave me all the spoilers because he knows that I won't remember anything in like 5 seconds. So it's fine.
Goldfish.
Literally a goldfish memory.
Well, it was incredible. And we can be that for workplace cultures.
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with me though. Like my memory, I feel like I need to like start playing like crosswords or something because
brain, yeah, Sudokus.
I don't know. Like, okay, when I read books, like someone will be like, "Oh, have you read this book?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then I have to like go into my Kindle and like see what titles I've read.
Yeah.
And then if I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did read that," but I still could not I could not give you a recap of a book like after I read it. So like sometimes I hear people talking about like books that they've read and they'll give like a little recap. I'm like, oh, maybe I read that, maybe not. Like how do people remember these things? Like as soon as I'm done, as soon as the book is over, like
it's out of your brain.
On from my memory. Like, okay, The Nightingale, I know I read that. I loved that book. Probably like one of my favorite books. I probably could not recap it for you right now, besides that it's a World War II story, you know? Like
it's so good. I couldn't
like give you tons of details or anything. So I think something's wrong with me.
Were you always like this, or is this a post-children thing?
Well, I have like very limited memories of my childhood, but I think that's from like traumatic events, you know, like I don't remember a lot of childhood things at all. I think it's always kind of been a thing, but maybe someone like dropped me on my head, or maybe the traumatic events like did something to my long-term memory. I don't know.
Receptors or whatever they're called. Yeah.
Yeah. Like my brain, it's just like goodbye. But then put on a 90s rap song.
Every word. Every single word. What came on and I was like, how do I still know every single word to this song? It was like an obscure Canadian boy band from like the boy band creation like show era from like and I remembered every single word.
Every word. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Asked me to talk about literally anything that I spent thousands of dollars to learn in secondary
school.
Could not tell you one thing.
No. 5 years of Spanish. Nope. Can like maybe say the numbers, colors, and like a few broken sentences, but sing any song from the 90s and I
think that's like the musicality though, right? Like because it's like to a cadence, you know?
Yeah. But actually when we were on girls' weekend, like four out of my 6 friends all knew that we were playing this like card game, and all of them knew all of the states in a song. And
the state song.
It was all the same, like they all knew the same song. And I was like, I did not learn this.
Yeah.
Like you all did in grade school, or I learned it and have zero memory of it. Like, I think I just didn't learn it. I think my school didn't learn it, but
I have heard the state song. I think Taylor Swift sang it on like Jimmy Fallon or something. And
little known fact.
It has no melody that makes it memorable. So I don't understand how that works for people, but it does.
Right. Like you're just singing the states with basically whatever tune you want.
Yeah, willy-nilly.
I felt really left out though. I was like, wow, my education clearly was not as good as y'all's.
Can you name the 50 states though without the song?
Sure, I could write them down.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't name them and then know if I had said them all, you know?
Right.
So like
you have to write them down.
Yeah, I would write them down. I know them all.
Yeah. I'm so glad Canada only has 13 to remember. But I know them in English and French.
I remember, oh yeah. Well, see? Educated.
Yeah.
I used to know all the countries in Africa too, and where they were, which is like a lot of countries as well. But I remember having like some sort of test or quiz on that in high school, and I had to like put all the African countries. But I I couldn't do that anymore. Not all of them, because there's like
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, the things they teach us in school, but they don't teach us how to do our taxes.
Right.
You know,
or lots of other
like life's important life skills. Balance a checkbook, you know.
Yeah, or like
be kind, you know.
Be kind to people. There's so many, like change a tire.
Oh yeah, change a tire. That's a big one. I feel like you had to sign up for those classes, but they should have been mandatory.
Yeah, because obviously I didn't sign
Check your oil, you know, change your oil, change your washer fluid. My husband dies every time. I'm like,
he gets in your car.
He's like, how do you not know where the washer fluid? I'm like, I just don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't know.
I understand that if he lifts up the hood and he's like, see, I'm like, yeah, if I was forced to figure it out, I could.
Probably could.
But you do this, just like you can't figure out how to like chop a vegetable with any semblance of speed or accuracy, because we all have our skills, and that's yours, like, mine.
It also is like very much learned helplessness. Like
totally.
When I was single and like didn't have Tyler, like, and something happened in my life, number one, I would like cry and call my dad, but then I would figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
Now, like if my car breaks down, I don't know what to do. I just call Tyler.
I don't know what to do.
Help me.
Help me.
I remember one time I was very pregnant and I was picking up both dogs from the dog sitter, and Tyler was in Tennessee.
I remember this. Yeah.
And I picked up the dogs. I get both of the dogs in the SUV, try to start the car, nothing. Remind you, I live in Florida. It's hot as hell. I have two big dogs in my car. I'm really pregnant, and I'm like, what do I do now? Like, now I'm like also sitting in front of this person's house, like our dog sitter's house, who was not like our regular dog sitter, because our regular dog sitter wasn't available. So it was like this other random lady that like I don't really know that well, and now I'm like stuck in her driveway. So of course, what do? You call your husband, who's 3 states away, because he's gonna be able to help you.
But he just gives you an action plan.
He was like, they were helping out on like his grandfather's farm because his grandfather had passed away, and they're mowing the farm. So he's not answering his phone, and I'm like panic calling him. And then I called his brother because I knew he was with his brother. Yeah. I was like, if I call him, then they'll really be like, she's in trouble.
Tyler's like, how about you try CAA?
Yeah, he answered, and then Tyler like called them for me. Like he called AAA for me.
Oh my God. Yeah, of course it's AAA for you. It's CAA for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew what you were talking about. Yeah. So, but if I was like a single person in that scenario, I would have figured it out. Obviously, I would have had to like call a tow truck, AAA or a tow truck to figure it out.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I'm in those situations, like I have almost like an anxiety attack, and everything leaves my brain. Like I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Fix this.
I'm
the same way. Sometimes I think there's just things that I like, now that we have been together for like 14 years, there are things that are mine and there are things that are his. And there are things that my body is no longer capable of doing anymore. Correct. And they're same for him.
Yeah.
And there are also things where I'm like, I know that I could do this, but I actually cannot. So you need to do this for me. Like, and vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's only natural, but
I think so and he's like, what would you do without me? And
I'd be fine.
Like, that's my response.
Be fucking like, for real. I'd be fine.
I would be fine. Like the reason I don't do these things is because you are here.
Yeah.
But make no mistakes. Like I would figure it out if I was, you know, if you left me and I was on my own, right?
I would be fine.
I am an independent woman.
Like I can
figure out how to call AAA. Yeah.
I travel alone. Like I drive, like I do, like I drive, like that's like revolutionary.
I drive. But, you know, no one
like I go, me. Like I don't have no problem driving like very far on my own. Like I can do all the things. But I don't have to.
That's right.
Because I have you. How would you be if I left? Do you even know? How to, like, that's not true at all, because my husband is incredible. I have an incredible husband, but
same. But make no mistakes. Okay. I'll be fine.
I love him. I love my husband dearly. When we were at Taylor Swift, he did the grocery order, the meal plan. I did the meal plan before I left, but he did the grocery order. And he did an incredible job and got all the food and all the snacks and all the lunch food for everyone, except he seemed to forget that I live in this house too. And there was like
that's what Tyler does.
No food for me. Nothing for me. Like he didn't plan anything that would have leftovers. Actually, I guess I didn't plan anything that would have leftovers, but then there was like no food or snacks for me to eat during the day because I work from home. And I was like, by like Tuesday, I was like, we have no food.
Yeah.
We only have the exact food that we need for exactly what was his lunch, of course.
Oh my gosh.
But bless him. He did
it.
He's incredible.
Sounds about the same over here.
I rag on him. He's incredible.
Yeah. But he can be incredible and have some faults.
Learned helplessness. I think that's better than weaponized incompetence, because I don't think that's what my husband had.
Oh yeah. I saw that term. I hadn't seen that term before. I saw that term.
Which comes up in the workplace a lot. So this might be,
yeah. I saw that term for the first time in like a Reddit thread actually recently. And I was like, oh, interesting. I was like, but I had a different opinion. Like I didn't think the scenario, I think it was like an am I the asshole, thread on Reddit. And I was like, I don't have the same take, like I didn't feel like it was weaponized incompetence. Like I felt like the person really just didn't care enough to like
figure it out,
more of an effort. Yeah. Like, or didn't know enough to like, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna not do this so that I never have to do it again.
Yeah. I think it's become like a buzz term. But I do think learned helplessness is actually like more accurate for a lot of these scenarios. Like you create dynamics, and this is so true in the workplace too. You create dynamics where everyone kind of has their job. So you don't learn the other jobs. You don't learn the other roles. You can't fulfill them. So that doesn't even, like, they could be very simple things, but you don't know the basics of it. And so then when you're thrust into having to do it, you don't know what to do.
Right.
Or you default to the person who
you don't even know when to do it or when because you've just
it's not on your radar
of not having to do it for so long. I will give you the example of putting gas in the cars. Like I never put gas in the cars because Tyler, like he just always does both cars. Like he always puts gas in the cars.
Yeah.
I know how to put gas in the cars, but now I don't even look,
to check. Yeah.
I don't even think to check. And like now he knows that I don't think to check. And so he really has to check because he's like, well, Adrian's been driving this car. Like she's not even going to notice that it's like literally on E.
On empty. Yeah.
But also like he prefers to like fill up the car as soon as it's on like a half tank. Whereas I will drive it until it's like below E.
Yeah. So
that's just who I am.
Yeah.
He doesn't like that. So he has taken that on as like his thing.
He owns.
But now, like I am in this space of like learned helplessness. It's not that I can't do it or I wouldn't do it. It's just that like I don't even think to check. It's not even on my radar anymore. Like you said, like I don't even think to check. I am helpless in this situation. You know, like
gas in the cars is so funny. James works 1.5 kilometers from home, and he drives because he starts at 5 a.m. So he drives to work. And mostly he takes like the one vehicle, but we live in a cold climate, right? So I'm very cognizant that in the winter, our cars have at least a quarter tank just in case, but he will drive that car until it's down to like E. And I'm like, what if there is something, what if there is an emergency, or what if you have to, like, so now I have a house rule, like the car needs to have 4 bars of gas in it. Because he also drives past 2 gas stations on the way home. So just fill up the car. But
he's like trying to hurry to get home to you.
Oh, if only. Actually, he is. He's actually trying to get home to meet the school bus. So I don't have to go. Yeah. Oh, alrighty. Should we dive into today's stories?
I guess.
I know we didn't even talk about our weekends, but it was great. We went to Great Wolf Lodge. It was incredible. Had the best time.
I had less of an eventful weekend, but this weekend's Mother's Day for anyone.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget.
Actually, as this airs, it will have just been Mother's Day. So I hope that all of our mothers have an incredible Mother's Day, and mother figures and grandparents and aunties and family friends and dads who act as the mother figure.
A hard day for you.
I hope it was
less hard,
manageable, survivable.
The haters,
Yeah. It's a tricky day for a lot of people.
Tricky day. Really is.
Even as a mom who still has my mom, it's still like I just think about my nan, like it's just like it's just a big day. So
So let's not bring it up. Sorry, I mentioned it.
Moving on.
Moving
All right,
on,
let's get into our first
sorry.
stories. Okay. So I'm not even going to try to pretend that we don't know who this is from because the pseudonym is M's Big Bro. So this is from my brother.
When I read the
Nudge,
pseudonym, I
nudge.
was like, wait, he's really not even trying to hide who he is. But I love it.
This is from my incredible big brother.
M's Big Bro.
Yeah.
Smiley face.
He's the best. I love him so much. Okay. So he says last week, I feel like I could give so much context, but we'll just see.
But
yeah. I won't. Yeah.
Okay.
Last week, a member of my staff, we'll call him Bob, who really through no fault of their own underperforms at their job, had a trial at another job, but didn't get it. Ironically, at the same time, I got an application and have met with someone who is absolutely ideal, all in caps. Bringing them on board will solve so many issues. Letting Bob go would be devastating for him and could get ugly. Is Bob the best? No. But he's in brackets, probably too dedicated to the job and does a decent enough job. Think of the kid who works his butt off, gets straight C's and is thrilled. That's Bob. My other option is to let go a more capable staff member who is leaving the country in a few months anyway. What to do?
Oh, Bob.
I know.
Makes me really feel for Bob, you know, because like he's saying like he just tries hard, but it's just never gonna.
I just don't think it's the right fit.
Yeah. And it sounds like your bro has like a sweet spot for Bob.
He is such a softie. Like I cannot tell you what a softie he is when it comes to the people who work with him.
Yeah.
It's like he's a toxic softie.
Yeah, like at first, before I read the last line about the person who's leaving the country in a few months, like my thoughts are we definitely have to let Bob go because this other person is ideal, and like maybe by letting Bob go, Bob will find something else that's actually more suited for Bob, right? And he can excel in this role, whereas maybe in the current space or the current role, like he's never going to be able to be an A player because he's just maybe his strengths don't align, or maybe you know but maybe and sometimes it's like so hard to let people go who you personally have a soft spot for, but I always try to remember that like maybe it's also in their best interest so that they can like find what's better for them.
Absolutely.
But then I think about the person who's leaving in a few months anyways, and I'm like, well, it's not really fair to let that person go yet because like they're actually better than Bob, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But you do need to be thinking about like, well, then who's going to fill that role once
anyway.
Yeah. So it's like, is it better to actually have Bob be mediocre when that new person leaves? Or is it like, like, is your candidate pool, like, do we think that we're going to be able to find someone easily for this spot once that person does leave in a few months to go abroad? Like the fact that you have this information makes it a little bit more challenging, but I still think at some point we got to let Bob go. So it's like, is it now or later?
Yeah, I think without the information of the team member leaving, it's like Bob's got to go.
Bob's got to go, yeah.
Because you have to bring in the ideal person. You can't sleep on that person. They have to join the team. Right. Knowing that someone is leaving, my stance would be we have to keep Bob. I do have the insider info that there is the roles that my brother hires for, like they do have high turnover because it's a very physical and it's like they work all year round, like you know what I mean, it's not a traditional job structure, so there is a higher turnover. And so while it's sometimes easy to find people, they don't always last that long. So my brother's pretty much like always hiring, he's always looking. So I feel like I would not let someone go who can at least meet basic needs. Yeah. If you know you're about to have a big, like a real gap soon.
Yeah. Because we know Bob can do at least a mediocre job, and that's sometimes good enough, right? Versus having a gaping hole in the needs being met. So yeah, I think we gotta hire the ideal candidate. We got to keep Bob on board currently, but then I think we still need to be looking for another ideal candidate.
Yeah.
And probably let Bob go at some point. Just, Yeah.
So that's
advice.
Totally.
Big bro.
So that's the advice section. My brother did email me and update me that Bob actually left. Like between him submitting the story and this, that him and Bob are parting ways.
Oh my
so
gosh.
like the advice still stands.
Still stands. Keep this, obviously, the person who's leaving in a few months, but now you need to start hiring. You need to start looking again.
Right.
You know, hire this ideal person, keep the person on who's going abroad or wherever they're going for,
and get ready
and be transparent with that person. Like, I know you're leaving in X date, so I need to be looking for,
like, we're already now need to replace Bob, and we're in the future we're gonna have to replace the new person. So like there will be, I think the advice still stands for anyone who's in this predicament of like not having an ideal fit. You know, it's like you can turn C players into A players, but you need to identify like what would make them an A player.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't fit in your company, then they can go be an A player somewhere else.
Right.
Like, but if your company has needs, basic needs that they can meet in the interim, it's tough out there. So you also can't just be flippant with these like quote unquote people. I don't like, you know what I mean? It's like a tough distinction to say. Like, it's not that anyone's a C player. They're just not
fit for that role, fit for those strengths, right?
Exactly. They don't have I would go be a C player in a lot of places.
Oh, me too.
So
I am a C player, like even in certain roles within our company, you know, like when I have to do certain things that are not suited for me, which is just for me a sign that I need to like delegate that thing. Like I'm a C player, like I'm not great at everything that we do, you know?
Yeah, totally. Same. So I just had to give the update because.
Did he say why Bob left, or it was
no,
just
I
like,
asked for more info. I asked for the tea. So
like,
if I get it, I'll tell you next week. If Bob if I can get the update, I'll let you know.
Yeah, like was it on Bob's own account? Did something happen? Like because in the original message he said like Bob would stay basically forever is what it sounded like.
Right. So I'm curious if they had a conversation, the tough conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, let's go on to story 2.
All right, number 2. This is from Attitude Problems.
I like it.
Okay, and they say they need advice, and they said I have been struggling with a team member's attitude and have no idea how to request her to be in a quote unquote better mood.
Yikes. That's a really tough one.
This because like, okay, I want to give some
tough love,
some advice, like, or so just some perspective is like sometimes people are going through it at home or in their personal life and you just don't know, like you don't know what anyone's going through in their life. You know, we only see like
what they let us see.
And so while it's unfortunate and challenging and toxic in certain ways, like I always want to like take that perspective first, like when I go into conversation, because I do think there's a conversation that needs to be had, but like when I go into that conversation, like as a leader, I'm trying to be empathetic and remind myself that like something more is going on here, right? Potentially that they are not willing or able, or first of all, they don't need to share anything personal with me that they don't want to or feel safe doing. Like that is, you know, not for you to even ask, you know, if that's their story to choose to share or not share. But I still try to be empathetic that like something might be going on that is creating a negative mood for them. And if it's like affecting
other people,
clients,
you know,
and the culture and how you show up and the energy of the workplace, then I think it is something that deserves a conversation, right? So how do you do that without being like, stop being a bitch, right? Like you have an attitude.
Okay, so like you had to have one of those conversations with me like 2 years ago.
Memory of a goldfish, remind us.
So we were doing a launch and this is for Clockwork, for Run the Clockwork. And this is something we talk openly about on our team. So I'm not being shady at all. It was like Julie's first launch. It was the first time Clockwork had launched, having someone on the team who wasn't like directly working on the launch because her role is client facing. and client support only. And mine at that point then was like launch stuff. So it's the first time we'd done a launch where we weren't all hands on deck. She was like out here doing other things, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But she's also has a lot of ideas. And so she was coming up with ideas for like how to serve the clients while I was deep in just trying to keep my head above water to get through this launch.
Yeah.
And I was a bitch about it. I was like, can you just essentially, I did not say it this way, but I was like, can you just shut up? Like, that's not what I said. Obviously, I would never say that, but that was essentially the message.
Like, it was like how it came across, even though that was not the words that came out of your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like the next day, the next day you were like, we need to have a call. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. So I think it's like approaching
because I was drowning in like, I was overwhelmed, drowning and in my own life, stuff was going on. And it was, I just could not keep a professional face, and it came out and it was not cool. So
yeah. So I think it's like being open to having that, honest conversation with the person. Hey, what's going on? Especially if you can provide examples. I think that's really important because
and you have to do it immediately.
That's what I was just going to say is like, I had that conversation with you immediately after so that it was fresh, right? Like you probably already knew.
I already knew. I was like,
what we were going to be talking about.
Yeah.
And providing specific examples helps the person, like, it's just evidence, right? Versus like, I feel this way. Like,
feel like you're not as
being
opposed
nice.
To the way that you did that thing that just happened.
Or like the way that you said this. And we also record a lot of like our team calls. And I often, if I am feeling like I'm getting an attitude from someone or like someone is off a little bit, the first thing I do is actually go back and watch the recording, because 99% of the time, actually 100% of the time, it's usually, so far 100% of the time, it's usually me, maybe being excited about something and having expectations about how people were going to respond. And they just responded like flat or neutrally, but it was not negative. It was not attitude. Right. And when I go back and watch it, it helps me be like, oh, like I'm taking this too seriously, or I'm being too sensitive about this. Right. But if you find either you don't have a recording or you can't go back and replay that, or maybe you do and there is still attitude, right? And now we're like, okay, this is specifically what I'm talking about, right? Like this is inappropriate, or this makes the team feel a certain way. I think examples is really important for something like this so that they just don't feel attacked, like about who they are as a person, right?
Yes. Because that's the problem.
Like, because I mean,
especially if this is out of character for them. Oh yeah, true.
It's like a negative.
My favorite person.
Yeah, my favorite person too, right? But he's very pessimistic, and he knows that. But that can also still feel like if I'm like, you're in such a bad mood or whatever. He's like, no, literally, this is like who I am.
Yeah. Why are you attacking me for who I am?
Yeah, which can feel really, not nice,
Yeah.
So I think approaching that conversation with some examples and specifics and how you would prefer for them to respond, as well as just asking for more clarity on like what's going on for them in those situations and why maybe they responded that way. Because from Emily, like even this example with Emily, like the reason she reacted that way towards another team member was because she's overwhelmed, like because she has too much on her plate, because she needs to like laser focus on this. It's not just that she wants to be rude, and it came out that way.
Yeah.
But I think there might be something underlying that you could potentially uncover here by understanding this person better and just getting curious with them versus coming at it from like an attack or an accusatory or a attack on their character of like literally who they are,
Right. I know it's always tricky in these scenarios because like, in the example I gave of me, like that was like an acute situation versus I think
they're just always like this,
I mean, it's happened once or twice or 5 times in the interim, but versus like someone who is perhaps not a fit for your culture.
Yeah.
But again, like you can't Are they performing their job? Are they being rude, insubordinate, or toxic, or are they just not sunshine and rainbows?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good question. And have they always been this way? Is this something new? Like,
Yes.
is there maybe a life situation or even a work challenge or a work overwhelm or a work capacity thing that's bringing this on? Or back to like, is this just who they are as a character, like as like part of who they are? And like Emily said, like maybe it's not a good fit for the culture, or maybe it's fine and they're just not who you want them to be, or they're just not you. Like I think that Tyler, my husband, he's like an incredible fit for our culture because he is so different and he brings a different strength to the table than I do, right? Like even though I might be more like, I romanticize everything, I have like my head in the clouds, right? Like yeah, it's going to be amazing, it's going to do this, and he brings us back to reality. But he's not being like negative or toxic towards other people. So I think that there's a difference there. And I think it's worthy of a conversation to uncover some of that with this person.
And this is where things like the Enneagram come in really helpful, because then you can understand motivations of people versus just your perception of their actions.
Yeah.
So just a little, check that out if you want to.
And like for me, like that was something that, you know, was challenging for me about Tyler until I really reflected on how it was beneficial of like, and why I'm so grateful that he is that way, like why he's my like no person. And in the moment, sometimes it is still really frustrating for me because I want him to be a yes person. I want all of my needs to be immediately gratified.
I want Taylor Swift tickets now.
I asked for that for Mother's Day and he was like,
no.
He sent me this emoji, like, or like a GIF that was just like panic, like, like I can't fulfill this need. He's like, really came to me. He's like, how do I do that? Like, she's not even coming back to Tampa, and I'm like, you have to send me to another city. Like, what don't you get about this?
Like, make this happen.
Like, I want a minivan. I want this. Like, I am like Veruca
from Willy Wonka. Yeah.
Yes.
Give me more.
Give me more. Give me more.
I want it now.
I want it now.
Yes.
Like that is how I am when it comes to goals and like not just material. I'm not talking just material things, although like the things that I do in my life help me create material things for myself, but it's more so just like about goals and like things that I want to achieve and like I want it now. And Tyler's like, okay, calm down. No, right?
Like we're not gonna go from 0 to 10 figures in one day. Like one lunch, you know.
That. We're not having that. We're not, like, and it's frustrating at first, but then through doing some like personal work on this, I've started to recognize how grateful I am for who he is in my life.
Keeps you grounded.
And like, and what he brings to our goals and helps me like really understand. Like he makes me wait, you know, he makes me like think about like, is that really what we want? Is that the smartest decision? You know, whereas I would just be like off and
Wonderland.
I'm not like Veruca Salt in that like I make other people do it for me. Like I'm willing to work and like get what I want, but like I want it now. You know what I mean?
Right now. So I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that this attitude or better need for a better mood could be presenting itself, or like there's a lot of takes on why you feel like their mood is a problem. And like if it's just that they are like a miserable person. Which like
some people are
to you, that's your that's how they're reflected to you, then like that's okay too. And you just need to decide like, is that going to prohibit you from leading them? And if it is, then like they're not a fit, unfortunately.
Okay, this is like, you just made me think of like, that's such a good perspective of like, maybe they are a miserable person to you because maybe you are a miserable person to work to
them. Right.
Like, so maybe they're actually not a miserable person. Like
you're making their life miserable, maybe.
So that's actually a really good reason to have a conversation of like, why we are this way, like what's going on, capacity, work challenges, like, and they may or may not be able to be transparent with you, but you as a leader maybe need to also reflect on yourself and say like, am I doing anything? And you could even ask like, as long as you are willing to hear the answer, right? Like, am I doing anything that's potentially causing you to feel this way?
I just feel like it's really important when you approach these conversations to lead with, my perception of this situation is this.
Yeah.
I want to get your perception of this situation to see where we're not in alignment, because that's so different than going at someone and being like, you are a bitch, versus I am struggling with the dynamics of our relationship, because it really is a you problem, potentially. Yes. You know, potentially. Yes. Anyway,
potentially.
Okay. I hope that helped. Like
a lot of
so many things there.
A lot of different angles to that one. So yeah, best wishes.
Okay, last third story. Boundary Help submitted it. So we recently hit a bit of a wall in terms of exhaustion and morale on our team after a lot of growth and some shifts in leadership. How can I find the balance between continuing to be a collaborative, people-first leader that believes in work-life balance and flexibility, and setting clear boundaries about expectations without feeling guilty about it? This is a great question.
What are your thoughts?
So the team is burnt out, tired. The team's tired. Mm-hmm. A lot has happened. You want to put the people first. We have to put the people first, but we still need work to get done. Yeah. So this is like
business.
This is the like continuous cat and mouse game of being a leader who puts their people first. Because like sometimes the people on your team, so I have a friend who just started a business, Chronically Ill Society. You should check her out. She has a chronic illness and she's been battling endometriosis for as long as like since she was 20. She had a hysterectomy at 26. Like she's in it, you know, and so she's always struggled with work and jobs because some days her 100% is actually 20%.
Right.
That's still just her giving 100%. And I know that's like a chronic illness example, but I always come back to that. Like, if you have 20% to give and you're giving your 20%, you're giving 100%. And this is like the number one message that she talks about is like, you have to honor what your fullness is in that day. Otherwise you're going to be riddled with like guilt, resentment, stress, all that stuff, because like wishing that you were at 100%. So it sounds like in this example, your team is not able to be at like what has traditionally been 100% capacity. But you still have to get work done. And so if you want to honor the season that your team went through and understand that you are going to have to adjust what 100% looks like for this next season, maybe that's the next month, maybe that's the next quarter, depending on like how trying this past process was, you're going to need to look at what's on your plate and see like what can be scrapped. And that's my perspective as a team member, that like if someone really wanted to honor that we were burnt out, I would need to see a reduction in expectations to allow people to like fill their tanks a little bit. But I'd love to.
Yeah, I think very similarly. I think one thing that I would want to define is like, you know, they shared that they want to be a collaborative people first leader. And so my first approach would be like, let's set expectations together. Like what is realistic for us as a team in this season, knowing that we're tired, we're exhausted, we're burnt out. Like what is realistic for us to accomplish? And let's set goals around that versus maybe like what you're saying, like maybe 100% previously is not this going to be the same. And so what are our expectations for our outcomes as a team and as individuals, so that we're still setting boundaries and setting goals for ourselves, but we're adjusting those to the current season that we're in, right? Because I think it could easily go from like, oh, we had these really high expectations and now the expectations are zero because I want you to take care of yourself. Like you can't,
it can't be that
swing that, because I think that's maybe the fear here is like, if I'm afraid to set certain boundaries because I want them to still know that I care about their work-life balance and their quality of life.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to swing the pendulum the other way and like not set any boundaries. And I think that is equally detrimental to everyone. Right. And so I think maybe there's an opportunity to be collaborative in the boundaries and the expectations that you are all setting with each other and making sure that those feel realistic. Like one thing that we recently done is like 4-day work weeks. We don't work on Fridays, like we're closed on Fridays, but we continue to check in on like, is that working? Is it realistic for the workload that we have? Like, you know, just making sure that it's still working for people versus just being this arbitrary boundary or arbitrary like work-life balance perk that isn't actually adding to people's quality of life, you know?
Which it
but
is,
I often wrestle with like, am I being too nice? You know, because I want to be a leader that really does like treat people well and takes their whole person into account first. But sometimes I'm like, do I need to just like set a stronger boundary or like lay down the law, you know? And then I usually like talk to Tyler about that, and he's like, no, because it's not really like who you are. But there's maybe a better way to communicate that and approach that versus just like, you know, swinging again, like, oh, I'm either too nice or I have to be this like tyrant CEO. And that's not true, right? Like we can meet in the middle somewhere. And I think being collaborative is what this person wants. And so I would advise them to like be collaborative in that process as well, of like setting boundaries and adjusting expectations together. And if what they're saying isn't going to help you meet company, and maybe that's also part of it, is like sharing company goals, sharing like being more transparent about what the company needs to do in order to keep people employed. Because sometimes people don't have an understanding of like what we need to, like what is required of us to like stay in business, or for me to be able to keep paying you, or to keep your job, right? And is that realistic? Like, does that match what they can do in terms of performance?
Exactly. I think the biggest thing to remember when it comes to like wanting to be a leader like this, and you want to be collaborative and people first, is like, you have that, like, there has to be action. But there also has to be action behind that. And one of the kindest things that you can do for your team member is be very explicitly clear about what the expectations are. And if you're getting feedback and not taking action on it, your team is going to stop giving you the feedback. And then they're going to become like, if there's like a feedback of like, oh, we're feeling really tired, or we're feeling overstretched, and you're getting that continuously and you're not taking action on it, they're going to stop giving that feedback. They're still going to feel that way. And then they're probably going to leave. It's like, what can we do? What actions can we take? Do we need to make a hire? Do we need to drop a project? Do we need to extend a couple deadlines? But keeping in mind that like, this is the goal we set for the year. And like, I would still like to hit that goal if we can. So like, what does that look like? I know it's a delicate balancing act, especially when you really truly care about the people that you work with, but like, it's a business, so we need to make revenue. And you know, we've had this conversation at Clockwork a lot about when it comes to like mental health supports and resources. It's like these are things that it's not as obvious as when someone breaks a leg and is like, okay, well, the doctor says I need to take a month off to heal my whatever, versus like, we're just not, you know, the morale isn't there, the capacity is not there, the team is, you know, like it doesn't feel tangible. Right. So it's hard to be like, okay, we're going to do this for 3 weeks and then everyone better be back to normal. So you have to be able to like stay fluid in it, take action where you can, but be very explicitly clear. Like, this is still, you know, I've made these adjustments and this is what we're going to do. And we will reevaluate next month, you know, but like, let's just take this one small chunk of time at a time.
You're so wise.
Thank you. It's because I work with you.
I just noticed that if you're not following us on Instagram, we're at Dear Work Wives, and like all the clips are just like Emily being wise AF. And I'm like, why am I even on this show?
Shut up. I have a really good clip of you that I'm going to post soon. Don't worry. It's ready. It's in the drafts.
I'm not saying that so that I get more clips. I'm saying that because you are wise.
Thanks. That's why we did this, because it feels like we need the two perspectives. We need, how's it feel to be under this thumb, and how's it feel to be the one holding the thumb down? Not that that's what you do.
Neither is ideal all the time. You know, both come with hard things. And I think that like having both perspectives is really important. Like, I feel like so much of a better leader and advocate because of your ability to speak up for team members. Like, when I go do trainings, like I did a training a few weeks ago for a group of CEOs, very high level CEOs, like, you know, multi seven figures. And we were talking about efficiency, and they were talking about how like one person was like giving advice on like, you need to track people's time and know exactly where it's going, and you need to tell them how long something should take to do, and if they're spending more time on it than what you communicate, like, oh, it should take you 30 minutes to do this, why is it not taking you 30 minutes to? And I was like, absolutely not. And I spoke up to the entire group of like, I think that that's horrible advice. I think that like,
yeah, I could never.
Like,
I
could never.
I'm too timid.
No, I was like, because I feel it's important for me as a CEO to be an advocate for team members who maybe don't have a voice in that scenario. And then this person giving advice to other CEOs to do that. And they may think that that's a good idea. And I'm like, that might be a good idea if that's the kind of culture that you want to have. But as like team members would not appreciate that. And here's why, because they're human, right? Like, because on any given day, it might take me 3 hours to do something that on a normal day might take me 30 minutes, right? Like, because we're all human. And so I don't want to be micromanaged under a thumb, like you said. And so I just feel like I'm such a better advocate for team members because I know your perspective so much more intimately now that we've like worked together for years, and you've been vocal about like advocating for it. So kudos to you.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Also, if you have not left us a review on
please
iTunes,
leave us a review.
Spotify, like please go leave a review. It helps us immensely, like to get the word out to other people, to other podcast listeners about this podcast. It's super easy. Just go on iTunes, go to our show, and like scroll down, and you'll be able to like write a review. Say nice things, please.
Yeah. We're also uploading these as video episodes on Spotify. So if you would want to watch, go for that.
Our face.
And we're on the gram, Instagram, and TikTok as Dear Work Wives.
We're on TikTok. Stop. We're TikTokers now.
Yeah. So come hang out with us. Give us feedback.
Thank you all. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
We'll see you next Tuesday. Forgot. Bye.